Welcome, beautiful people, to my podcast, Tea Time and Soul Talk with Ella Aria Shanta. As we are on the lockdown and social distancing is in place, I will record this episode on my own. The last episode was about introduction to this podcast, and today I'm going to talk about self-love. And based on the situation that our world is facing, I'll explain the connection. Let's talk about it. The situation around the world is the result of the reaction of nature to our behavior, as we're not in tune to our inner nature and thus nature around us. We basically think that we are separated from the creation that is around us and in us. And because of our ego mindset, we believe we're above it. And so we think action consequence is limited to a singular action. For example, we cut down the tree in the rainforest, action. The tree falls down and being processed, consequence. Or we kill an animal, action. The animal is being processed into a meat that is being eaten, consequence. So basically that is an ego mindset based on action, consequence, result. But reality is that the world's law is action-reaction that has a consequence. So for example, we were cutting down the tree, and that is the action. And reaction would be unbalanced ecosystem, and the consequence has a negative effect not only to our bodies and minds, but also to our lifestyle or world around us. It's the same with killing an animal or polluting our water resources. The reaction will be imbalanced life. As people consume those things, and again, the consequence will be decaying of our body and our surrounding. And with our ego mindset, we clean our hands from being a part of that action. Even though a person who kills that animal or pollutes our ecosystem is one person, we're still responsible as we support that action. We eat the product of that action. We do not care how the trash is being processed and where it goes, and so on and so on. So every action, even though it might start with one singular person, it spreads through connection, like the virus does. So on a physical level, you think only one person or a group of people or a certain government is responsible for that action, but in fact, that is not the reality. On a spiritual level, it's not just one person, but all of us, because our consciousness is a part of collective consciousness, meaning we are all from one creation and creator. Thus, we are one. Let's say like this. Your children might have different personalities, but they have similar DNA strings to yours. And in the end, we are all human beings with the same DNA, which connects us. So if we put this perspective to more expanding understanding of life, we can say that although our consciousness is individual, it's also part of one greater consciousness, and thus we are all one. It's the collective ego mindset that is creating the atmosphere in which certain action takes place, and the reaction of that projection is manifested. It starts with mistreating ourselves and our surrounding, compounded unresolved issues that contaminate our minds and bodies, our unforgiving nature, and so on. And that spills into ether and gets stick to another being and another and so on, until it creates enough energy to manifest itself as a reaction, and in this case, the virus. So just this example, this virus is hitting our lungs. What are the lungs of this planet? Forests and water. And in spirituality, lungs represent acceptance, giving and receiving. You inhale and exhale, so life and death. So it's a constant exchange. And when that exchange stops, everything stops. Life stops. So when the gift of exchange is hurt, automatically we are hurt. And as this reaction hits all the people around the world, it means that we as human beings and occupants of this planet need to stop and acknowledge life, be responsible for that life, and also for our actions. And it all starts from us. And all of that brings me to self-love. This is necessary on a path, and that has a certain effect, not just to our lives, but the people around us and globally. And all the other occupants on this planet, animals and trees and minerals and everything that is around us. So what is the meaning of self-love? As it says, means to love oneself, to love yourself. Now, who is that self? Who needs this love? And who is giving that love? Who is you? Now, that's a question that everybody wants to know at one point in their life, and it's a quest that every spiritual being is on. To get to this point, I've learned there are certain steps. I've divided them into 4 major steps. First step, I call it seeing oneself, meaning observing our actions, our words, our reactions, our thoughts and feelings. So it's all about observation. For example, this and that makes me sick or sad. My body hurts when I do that or this. And of course, if there are people around us that kind of reflect certain status of our mind and our feelings, they definitely, like a mirror image, give us that reaction. So it's observation. Now, second step is understanding ourselves. So once we observe our behavior, then we need to understand that behavior. Why did I do that? What's behind it? Where and when does it come from? We're like detectives of our own behavior. So this far, in these 2 steps, seeing oneself and understanding oneself, they're very analytical retrospective. Once we see and understand our action, we come to another level, and that is accepting oneself. Acceptance is very important. It's a step to our personal and spiritual development and greater knowing. Of course, we still don't fully know who we are, but at least we have analyzed and understood our behavior. Now we need to accept that we have negative and positive traits. Now, here's the catch. Some traits are hindering us from really feeling that inner love or self-love, and some do not. For example, being stubborn might mean that we are great survivors in a certain environment, which is good. But if we are not able to recognize mistakes we've made or forgive others for making them, then that is hindering our path in learning. So first you need to differentiate, which means even more fine-tuning in our observation and analytical skills. But in the end, you come to the acceptance. That is because that's just your expression. This stage is the hardest and most intricate to do or develop, and it takes some perseverance. And it helps if you meditate or chant, do some spiritual practices like yoga or praying, or reading holy scriptures or listening to people who've mastered. And of course, when you research more and more. Because all of those facets can help us quiet our mind and thus help you to see things from a broader perspective. Remember the hedgehog and eagle perspective that I've talked about in previous episode? So seeing the picture from above. Have a wider perspective. And now we're slowly coming into an eagle perspective, and we start to see that we are not only this web of intricate emotions and thoughts, but we are also creators of those emotions and thoughts. And we start to create new thoughts, new mindsets, new feelings. And that allows us to learn more about who we really are. So the next step is knowing yourself. So knowing ourselves. This is a stage where it might take us some years, some decades, or many lifetimes, depending on how eager we are to learn about ourselves, and of course, depending if we are ready. But what essentially means is that at this stage, when you recognize your spiritual self, and you're able to reach the well of infinite, unconditional, compassionate, humble, divine love, where your true self lies. Now, in conclusion, first of all, recognize that you're not alone and you're not excluded from your action or passive actions. We're all connected, but it starts with us. So the second is to find guidelines and start observing yourself. Find some type of spiritual practice that can help you quiet your mind and go deeper to learning about yourself. And see how that will change not only your life, but consequently life around you. I thank you for being with me, listening. Hope you join our next episode. It will be about self-reflection. I will share my own created 50 questions or guidelines to help you self-reflect, and I'll try to explain the difference between self-reflection and self-criticism. Stay in peace and love and take care of yourself and people around you. Use this time for observation, meditation, and learning not only about yourself, but also about others. This is Tea Time and Soul Talk with Ella Aria Shanta. Bless you all and have a lovely day.